This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. In today's show, I will be joined by Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net for our closing market recap. But first, it is my discussion with Seth Mitchell. He is the executive director of the Nebraska Pork Producers Association. Had a chance to speak with Seth at the National Pork Producers Council exhibit at the NAFB convention in Kansas City recently.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Seth Mitchell. We are at the National Pork Producers Council set up at the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention, and Seth is the executive director of Nebraska Pork. Seth, I know you've worked a lot in the past about getting youth involved in the pork industry. I guess, where do you stand with that right now in terms of, are youth still excited to get involved in working with hogs, and what has that process been like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the youth are the future of the agriculture industry, right? And NPPC recognizes that and is committed to developing them and empowering them to be advocates. They have what's called the Young Pork Advocates Program, which I was privileged to work on when I worked for NPPC not too long ago. And through that, one key event that they host every year is the Young Pork Advocates Issues Meet at the World Pork Expo, where college students from across the country come together to discuss issues of relevance and importance to the pork industry, with the opportunity to win scholarships and trips within PPC.
And then Seth, switching gears a little bit, we know Prop 12 has been one of those big issues that's across the industry. Where do we stand right now with Prop 12, and what do we need to do in terms of thinking about going forward?
Yeah, and so, maybe just start with a little bit of background around Proposition 12, right? For your listeners, it's an arbitrary animal housing standard passed through a ballot initiative out in California in 2018 and requires that pork sold into the state of California be raised by sows anywhere in the country that are housed with 24 square feet of space per animal. So you can understand how that creates some challenges for our producers across the country when they think about planning the future of their operations, building barns and infrastructure, thinking about how they build to meet those requirements. And even more so than that, the potential uncertainty and patchwork of regulation across the country that could come from other states adopting similar or different animal housing standards that would require producers to change the way that they do business. So it's really about freedom to operate. It's about creating certainty for producers. We're urging Congress to find a solution to that issue. NPPC is working to find an avenue through the adoption of a farm bill.
And, just on a common sense level, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it, for one state to be dictating how other states are raising their animals without a overall legislative look at things? I mean, with overall legislative umbrella of having that set up the same across the country. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, it creates a lot of challenges for our producers. For us, it's an issue of interstate commerce. One state dictating to producers in another state. I represent the state of Nebraska. What are the impacts that California Proposition 12 is having on producers raising pigs in Nebraska? They have to follow rules set by the state of California and how to sell their product here in the United States. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And then, Seth, when it comes to immigration and labor reform, I know that's an ongoing topic, and I'm sure just like in all parts of agriculture, that is an issue right now in the hog industry, is the ability to get workers that you can count on and having them available and making that process easier for everybody, and then also helping out the workers. So where do we stand in terms of the reform right now?
Well, as you said, the livestock industry relies on a sustainable year-round workforce in order to effectively run our pork operations. And I can speak for Nebraska, right? We have a relatively low unemployment rate. It's well below the national average. And quite frankly, it's just hard to get folks to want to relocate to rural areas to do some of that hard labor on farm. And, we utilize heavily the TN visa program right now. That works really well for our producers. But what we need is more access to year-round unskilled skilled labor force through an H-2A visa reform. And the H-2A visa as it is right now is for seasonal workforce, so the livestock industry does not have access to that program. What I know NPPC continues to work with Congress is on reforming that program to allow for year-round access for livestock producers.
And I know NPPC always working behind the scenes on projects like that when it comes to legislation. So that's something that's taking place behind the scenes, maybe even if you're not aware of it happening, it's happening at all times,
right?
I
mean, NPPC is continually active out on the Hill, representing issues of all shapes and sizes. We've only scratched the surface. Countless issues going on, and NPPC is there continuously advocating and fighting for producers.
And you brought it up at the start of your answer to that question, and I think it's a great point because I'm not sure the average person realizes that hog barns are in rural locations. They're far away from population centers, so it's just difficult to get people to go to those areas, like you said, because they are so rural.
Yeah, I mean, that's really part of the problem, and that's why we rely pretty heavily on the migrant workforce through the visa programs.
Seth, is there anything else you'd like to let our Iowa listeners know about when it comes to what you're working on with Nebraska pork, or just anything in the overall, industry standard setting by NPPC right now?
Yeah, I think I'd just like to end by reiterating the importance of advocacy. You know, whether, regardless of what issue it is or what industry you come from, the importance of reaching out to your congressional delegation, to your elected officials, voicing your concerns and making sure that you're represented as a constituent. NPPC is only as effective as the voices that we represent. So it's really critically important that producers of all shapes and sizes contact your elected officials and make your concerns known.
That's definitely the case. It is so true. Producer's voice, very strong tool for them to use. And Seth, I want to thank you so much for the time here today. He is Seth Mitchell with the Nebraska Pork Organization. He's the executive director. We are here at the NPPC booth at NAFB Convention. Seth, thanks so much for the time and have a great rest of the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you to Seth Mitchell for joining today's episode of Ag Matters PM. It is time now for the closing markets, and I'm joined by Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. Curt, for the most part today in the grains, it was fairly quiet on our market screens. Is that how we closed the day today?
Yeah, it seems like we're in holiday mode already. Volume's starting to lag a little bit. I don't know if that's ahead of some type of surprise coming at us. But today, corn finished down 1.5. Beans down 3 to 4. Wheat market was up 1 to 2 cents. On the weekly chart, corn went down and found some key support and finished anywhere from 0.5 to 3 cents higher. We got a weekly price reversal to the upside on the charts in corn. So technically, this week's low should hopefully be it. Soybeans, on the other hand, finished down 26 cents on the week. But we're back down to the point of the breakout last October when all of a sudden we talked maybe trade deals and beans took off. We're back to 0.1 here. So it's going to be important to hold this week's lows. And of course, the wheat market made new fresh lows on the week, down 14 to 16 cents. So technically, we got some things to watch, but this is the last full trading week of the year, believe it or not.
Curt, it's also interesting when you look at the soybean complex right now, we've actually gotten some good news this week when it comes to those exports that are headed to China, making those purchases. And they've now passed, I believe I saw 7 million metric tons. So on the way to that 12 million metric ton number, but the market not really taking that and running with it. Is that all due then to just the good weather that's happening in South America right now?
We don't want to see more export sales. Anytime we see an export sales announcement, the market goes down. Part of that function is I think those beans were hedged, and that's why the market went up. So they bought the rumor and they lift the hedge when they actually purchase. They're selling the fact. Yeah, you're dead on total. The goal's 12. I've seen estimates anywhere from 4 to 9. But yeah, they're rapidly approaching that benchmark here, trying to get that in place. Then we'll move on to see about the 25 million metric ton number down the road. But as you mentioned there, as we turn the calendar, 2026, that Southern Hemisphere is fairly good shape. We're in the early stages of crop development. Yeah, there'll be some areas harvesting here right after the first of the year, but their main prime growing season is directly 6 months off of us. And so this January weather is going to be real important here as we get into the next couple of weeks here, Mark.
And some of those soybeans in South America already start to hit that marketplace in January. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on that. Curt, not as quiet on the livestock side of the trade today. What did we see with cattle and hogs?
On the day, the fats finished up $1.80 to $2.40. Feeders like a bottle rock again, up $4.80 to $5 on the weekly chart. The fats held in there fairly good. The feeders up $4 to $5. The fats and the feeders are back in the gap area we left. We're getting back up in some retracement levels. Cattle and feed report this afternoon, on feed 98.2, place 90.9, marketing's 88.5. Those are the average trade estimates. So we'll see where we come in place here. But cattle numbers remain tight. Not any word on beef crossing the Mexican border yet. And overall beef demand runs real well, especially in my house.
And we've certainly seen, those producers continue to make up that gap of not having the animals on hand and feeding to heavier weights to help with that, demand that is still there, of course, on the beef side. Curt Kimmel, agmarket.net. What's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
1-800-779-1515, or else you go to agmarket.net.
Thanks so much for the time here today, Curt. Always appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Take care.
Thank you to Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net for our closing markets discussion here today. Let's take a look at the closing market numbers, which can be found anytime under the markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com. March corn closes down 3/4 cent at 4.43 3/4. January soybeans down 3 cents at 10.49 1/4. January soybean meal down 80 cents at 297.60. January soybean oil down 21 cents at 47.90. Chicago wheat up 2 pennies at 5.09 3/4. Minneapolis wheat up 5 cents at 5.78. Kansas City hard red wheat down 1 3/4 at 5.15 1/4. March oats up 3/4 cent at 2.98. On the Merc, February live cattle up 240 at 230.80. January feeder cattle up 533 at 345.60. February lean hogs up 38 cents at 84.50. February pork cutout unchanged at 93.75. Class 3 milk up 5 cents at 15.66. That wraps up our closing market coverage for today and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. And there you will find all of our daily podcasts, including our Iowa Ag Matters podcast. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching Ag Matters PM.